Well, hello everyone on this Monday. It is the first day of December. First day of December. Wow. It's here. Final month of the year. Can you believe it? I can't. Anyway, you're watching 270 weather for the 270 area code and beyond. I'm Chris Allen, as it says right there. Right there. Okay, so we've got a lot to talk about this evening, and precipitation is already starting here in the Bowling Green area. Much of the 270, you can see the radar pretty well covered up back there. I've been watching this stuff progress, and I just stepped outside a few moments ago, and there's just these little tiny pieces of ice that are falling with the rain at here where I live, which is right next to the Bowling Green Airport. So that's what we're getting right now. But there's going to be a mixed bag of precipitation that we're going to see overnight. And it really depends on where you live as to what kind of precipitation you will receive. And many of us are going to get a little bit of everything: rain, freezing rain, sleet, and snow. Now, I will tell you, just like I explained on TV earlier today when I was doing the weather on News 40, um, it's going to be one of those situations where any kind of frozen precipitation that's not rain tends to cut into snow totals. So, this is why I always caution everybody to not just focus on, well, how much snow are we going to get? Well, if you get sleet or you get freezing rain or just plain rain, well, that's going to cut down on your snow totals. It's just the way it is, because all of that takes away from what could become frozen into a snowflake. So what you get may be some little sleet or little ice pellets or mixing with the rain. As long as you have that, you're not going to get that much snow. So for us here in Southern Kentucky, much of the 270, it's going to be that mixy kind of stuff, but there will be some places that when you wake up in the morning, there could be, maybe an inch of snow or more in some places. So we're going to explore all of that right now as we take a look. Before I go to the radar, I'll look at the numbers from today, because the numbers really help tell the story as to the cold air that's being drawn in ahead of this system. So when you see a high of 43, 10 degrees colder than normal, we should be at 53. That tells part of the story is that we've got cold air being drawn down from the north. And some of that wind that we felt today, breezy, a little breezy at times, that's actually some of that cold air is blowing off of a snowpack that's up around the Great Lakes. And so some of that cold air is transporting down into Kentucky. And so that's why, even with the sun being out a little bit today, it didn't warm up all that much. So 10 degrees below normal. And we started this morning at 22 degrees. It was cold if you were out. A lot of us headed back to work after the Thanksgiving holiday, and it felt really chilly. No precipitation officially here at the airport for this first day of December, but that is going to change very quickly. Let's go to the radar. And here you see, this is the current picture as of 6:52 Central Time. And you can see we've got pretty good coverage of precipitation. Now, the radar algorithm is going to show most of this in the form of rain, because here's why. You get a very deep layer of enough warm air to where when the radar beam goes up, and the radar beam in this case is coming up out of Nashville. So with the curvature of the earth, the radar beam sometimes overshoots and hits maybe something more into the atmosphere than what's actually hitting the ground. We know by several reports of many of you who've just chimed in and commented, and then I've been checking with my weather buddies around the state, that what's actually happening is rain mixing with some sleet, little tiny ice pellets. And there are some cases where you go back into Western Kentucky, there's even a little bit of snow mixing in with the rain. So the radar is trying to parse all of this out, and sometimes it has a hard time doing it, but a lot of this that's falling right now is rain mixing with sleet. Let's go up to the HazCam in Litchfield. And it's going to be hard to see, but even there, with the clouds, temperature at 37, they're getting probably just rain. But there could be some sleet even mixed in there in Litchfield and Grayson County. We go all the way to Gage, Kentucky, which is in far western Kentucky. And you can see there that at nighttime, a lot of these cameras change from color mode to black and white. And that's what you're seeing there. So that's not necessarily snow on the ground, but there are reports of snow back in western Kentucky around this area. Their temperatures you see there is at 32 degrees. That's the freezing mark. So there could be something there. It looks like now we're starting to see that more mixy color showing up. Lewisburg to Russellville getting some reports of rain mixed with sleet. A little bit of a break around Hopkinsville, but then there's more activity. Princeton down toward the land between the lakes, Murray, Mayfield, Calvert City, Paducah. A lot of this is going to start to transition over to snow. Now, our transition here in the Bowling Green area and along Interstate 65 is going to happen more into the overnight hours, because we've got to get just a little bit more cooling to take place. So here's Interstate 65 going all the way to Nashville from Louisville. The transition line is more like this. So that's why around midday, the National Weather Service added in places like Bowling Green and Warren County and Logan County, Butler County, so forth and so on, into the winter weather advisory, which is now in effect. Let's look at that. I'll turn off the composite radar. Well, I can't get rid of. I'm trying to get rid of the what I just drew, but I can't. Okay, so you get the idea. This is the winter weather advisory that's in effect from now until 9 a.m. tomorrow. Now, this says 8 o'clock. This was the additional extension of the winter weather advisory. But, I mean, even though it's just now coming up on 7 o'clock, if you're watching live, let's just go ahead and say it's here. It's doing it. Stuff's falling. So let's just roll with it. You know, weather doesn't know exact times of when start and finish. So we'll just say this winter weather advisory is officially in effect until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Mixed precipitation expected. Now, I want you to pay attention to this. Total snow accumulations up to 2 inches and ice accumulations around a light glaze. I want you to understand that when this kind of a mixed bag situation happens, you can't just focus on the snow. Because if you do that, you're likely to be disappointed as to how much or how little you actually end up with. Because again, we're on that fence. We're always on that fence. There are only rare times when we have enough cold air to really set us up in the track of a low pressure system, and all that plays into this. When everything just aligns perfectly, and then we get those big snows. But this is not going to be that. This is going to be more of a nuisance situation. I talked about this last night if you were watching. I still think, even though they've kind of bumped up the snow totals a little bit more, where some of you could get inch and a half to 2 inches of snow, there is going to be some of that total. There's going to be sleet, freezing rain, and then just plain rain that's going to be a part of that. So you can't just look at that and go, well, they just said we're going to get 2 inches of snow. Not necessarily. Again, a lot depends on where you are. Now, this is probably the most important statement out of all of this. Impact. Plan on slippery road conditions later tonight, hazardous conditions driving to work in the morning, to school, wherever. Could impact the Tuesday morning commute. That's the most important takeaway from all of this. So you can see how all these counties were added in, even down into parts of Middle Tennessee, not Nashville, but Clarksville, Springfield, Ashland City, Dixon, Tennessee, Dover, those areas were added in. So when you want to look at impact, we can do that. We can look at how all of this is, well, there's your interstates again, but you can see that that we're still on the low end of impact here. The greater impact, if there's going to be one, is going to be more north, where you see all these yellow counties shaded in. That is where there is, and even that is classified as a minor impact. Minor. So there's not a whole lot of impact that's even going to come from an inch or 2 inches of snow. Now, there could be somebody that picks up maybe just a little bit more than that, because this system will have a tendency to enhance, maybe throw down a little bit of snow in the what we call banding. It's where you get just little elongated, like taking a rubber band and stretching it out. And along that little boundary, they're like little boundaries. Along those little boundaries, we could have some heavier snow for a short amount of time. But that's not a guarantee. So I want you to just to know that this is still looking like a nuisance type of system, where you will get in the morning, you will wake up, and there's going to be some snow on the ground for some of you. And then for the rest of you, there's going to be maybe some slick spots, especially bridges and overpasses early tomorrow morning, or even late tonight for some, depending on the temperature profile of temperatures above you and below you, especially on surfaces this evening. But I can tell you that the current temperature is still in the 40s. We're at 41 right now. In fact, let me go and turn on. We'll look at the METARs, which is temperature. We'll look at that. These are the current temperatures, and you can see, sorry, I can't erase that red line until I reboot, but you can see 40. It's 40. So we've had this little bit of warm air infiltrate the area this evening, and that's why we are looking at mostly light rain mixed in with a little bit of sleet. You can see like Glasgow's at 37. We've got Greenville at 38, but Madisonville is at 35. Now you're closer in Madisonville, Hopkins County. You're a little bit closer to the freezing mark, which is 32 degrees. So 35, just 3 degrees away from the freezing mark, you're more likely to have some sleet with snow instead of rain. But that's kind of the transition that's going to take place tonight gradually. It's not going to happen all at once. So our 40 degrees will start to come down little by little into the 30s, but especially overnight tonight and early tomorrow is when the better cooling, if you will, takes place. So let's explore what the Weather Service has put out for the winter weather advisory. And here it is. And you can see those purple shaded counties that I just showed you are the ones that are under the advisory through this evening into early tomorrow morning. Now, they added in a few more counties to take in much of Interstate 65, but you guys out east of 65 are not necessarily under that advisory for tonight. It looks like most of the activity is going to come in as it is now, but the greater impact is going to be up here, I-64, not 65. Southern Indiana, Metro Louisville, Danville, Frankfort, Lexington. Snow amounts of 1 to 3 inches, but again, as I told you, do not just focus on snow because it's not all going to be snow. Main impacts will be slick roads, and as I mentioned, especially bridges and other untreated surfaces, and then especially late tonight, early tomorrow morning. Heaviest of any snow will occur in bands. Remember, I just talked about those bands that set up in the area late tonight, but where those bands set up is anybody's guess. It's merely speculation as to where those things are going to set up. But where they set up, the snow could come down briefly heavy. The main window for accumulating wintry precipitation starting 7 p.m. this evening. Well, it's 7 p.m. now, and the precipitation is here. And it's going to continue until about 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. And that's after that, it starts to taper off. Now, here are expected snowfall amounts. Notice here in Bowling Green, much of southern Kentucky, much of the 270, it's going to be an inch or less snow. Inch or less of snow. But again, if you do not wake up to an inch of snow in the morning, do not come back on here and comment, well, Chris, you said an inch of snow for Bowling Green, and I just got a dusting. That's because it's not what I said. What I said was there could be up to an inch. Or in some places, like once you go up to Beaver Dam, Litchfield, Campbellsville, E-Town, maybe 1 to 2 of snow. But again, your totals are going to be lower of snow if you get a longer period of freezing rain or sleet. That takes away from what snow could have fallen. Now, once you get up north of Interstate 64, that's when you start to see 2 to 3 inches or more of snow. But even that is not a big snow. That's not a big snow at all. 2 to 3 inches. I mean, we should just kind of be like, so what? Percent chance of 2 inches of snowfall or more. Now, I even hesitated whether to show you this or not because I think these kind of maps are confusing to you. I know what they mean. It is the percentage that the models, the Weather Service, the output that they're getting, showing, all right, where's the best chance of getting 2 inches of snow or more? Well, notice all of it is well north of Bowling Green. You'd have to go to Campbellsville, but even there, it's only a 2% chance of getting 2 inches of snow. Well, let's go up to E-Town. All right, maybe a little better chance. There's a 30% chance of getting 2 inches of snow or more. But what this does not account for is how much sleet is in there, how much rain is in there, how much freezing rain is in there. Well, then that would take that percentage of getting 2 inches or more of snow down. I'm not trying to be a negative Nelly, so to speak, but I just get so tired of the hype casting. I call it hype casting, the grandstanding, somebody wants to make the first call of snow and wants to make this about them instead of you. What I want to make this about is you. So I'm going to take the other side of the issue and go, well, how much are we not getting? Because I don't want you to go, well, they said it was going to do this and we got nothing or very little. Well, I'm going to lean toward the very little because that's usually what we end up with. In all the 40 plus years that I've been doing weather, I can tell you that I've had a lot of these systems bust. And then you get embarrassed the next day when you go in and do the weather on TV and you're like, you've got to now explain why it didn't happen. Well, as I've learned over the years, and my experience is here in Southern Kentucky and the 270 in general, we are going to always be on the leaner side of accumulating snow. It's just so difficult to get it to where it's the big snow. And this system was never meant to be a big snow at all. Only some of the more detailed fine tuning happened today, as usually is the case when the Weather Service, and I agree that, some places could see that banding where these little boundaries set up and get enhanced moisture enough with the colder air to produce possibly 2 inches or more. But those areas are going to be very few. Most of us are not going to get much of anything at all, except for some icy roads in the morning. And here's the same kind of setup, but this is using 4 inches of snow. There is only a 5% chance, 5% chance that Metro Louisville will get 4 inches of snow. Now, some of this banding that I was talking about, the more likely place for that to happen is going to be well north of the Bowling Green area. So if you're dreaming of white covered ground, you will probably be disappointed when you get up in the morning. It's more likely to be slushy if you get snow, or it's going to be icy. Like not a big coating of ice, but just enough of a glaze, especially on bridges and overpasses, that you're going to have to be careful in the morning. That's my number one thing. I could care less about, this is not going to be a snowmaker. This is going to be a troublemaker, a nuisance. And here you see potential weather impacts. As I was showing you earlier, that gray, light blue area that takes in Southern Kentucky, that's winter driving conditions could be hazardous late tonight, early tomorrow morning. And I'm not talking about the kind of ice covered roads where there's ice everywhere. It is not going to be that. This is going to be spotty. Those certain little places where it gets cold enough on a road, especially an untreated road, that you could have some slippage tomorrow morning, a little slip here and there, or on a bridge or overpass, because that cold air gets underneath that concrete. And where the rain comes down and freezes on contact, freezing rain, and maybe even some sleet accumulation, that could cause some icy spots. And that's basically it. And even in these yellow shaded areas where I told you there could be a little more snow, even there, minor impacts. Nothing major, nothing big. And then the other big story is how chilly it's going to stay all week long. Now, we do see some moderation into the upcoming weekend when we get into the 40s, maybe mid 40s, but overnight lows each night are going to be in the 20s and low 30s. Unseasonably cold for this time of the year. All right, let's go to the Kentucky Mesonet now, and we're going to talk about the current numbers and how they play a role in what's happening. And here we go. So, most of us now are in the 30s, as you see, 35 here in Bowling Green. No, that's not Bowling Green. I can't see the lines very well on when they get that color blue. But anyway, 37, 38. So we're in the upper 30s now. We were 40, 41. So the temperatures come down just a little bit. There you see. But look at this back here to the west. Now, this is the colder air coming in with the cold front. That's key because not only are we having cold air drawn in by this system, but then we've got cold air behind a cold front that's going to come through and push this moisture out of the way by in the morning. But overnight tonight, some of the temperatures are going to fall to near 30. So that's going to make a difference as well. The closer we get to freezing, then the more likely of seeing slick spots in the morning are going to be possible, or even late tonight. This is where we started this morning. Look at this. It's not going to get this cold tonight. This is the low temperatures for the day early this morning. 20, 21, 22. I don't see. Oh, there's 19 in Burkesville, of course, down near the Cumberland River. That was the coldest, one of the coldest. Adair County, Columbia, also fell to 19 this morning. But we are not going to get that cold tonight. We're going to stay in the right around 30, upper 20s to around 30. That's going to keep us from this being a bigger deal, because if it was colder than that, we would have some big problems. Here's a look at precipitation so far at the Kentucky Mesonet sites. Trace amounts so far. Not much going on. Winds currently out of the north at about 5 to 10. There's been some breezes out there producing a wind chill. This is how it feels right now. Most everybody close to the actual air temperature, because the winds have relaxed from where they were this morning. So we've got all of this happening this evening, and it's pretty much, I would say, playing out like we thought it would. So here we go. Rest of tonight. Low pressure system moves over southern middle Tennessee. If you were watching me last night, I said it was going to come through middle Tennessee and then start to move its way northeast. So it's pretty much following the path that we expected it to. And because of that, low pressure system winds around the center of a low pressure go counterclockwise, like if hands of a clock are going backwards. That's the way they go around a low pressure system. So this is going to tend to draw in colder air, and then the front back to the west will draw in a little bit more cold air, especially for the day tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be colder than today, and under clouds, we're just not going to warm up that much. So here is the current situation with the rain over southern Kentucky mixing with sleet and maybe freezing rain and snow. Here we go into midnight. The low now looks to track a little bit more into eastern Kentucky instead of going through eastern Tennessee, which is a little bit different from the earlier path that was forecast. Therefore, with it being a little closer to us, there is a little better draw of colder air, and therefore some locations, because of the proximity of the low pressure system, could get some of that enhanced banding of snow, especially around midnight and early tomorrow morning. But here's 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, and the snow will be, this system will be pretty much done. But just keep in mind, there will be some slick spots in the morning with maybe an inch of snow on the ground for some of you. If you live further north, closer to the Ohio River and the Wabash River, you could be looking at maybe 2 to 3, maybe. But it's moving out pretty quickly. It's not going to linger. So we're not going to get a big snow out of this. But I do think much of tomorrow will be cloudy and with flurries, occasional flurries. Here's noontime tomorrow. Here's 6 p.m. tomorrow night with high pressure building in and drying everything out and clearing the skies, clearing the clouds. Now, Wednesday morning, the Nashville Weather Service office is saying that they're looking at some fog. Well, I'll tell you this, that by Wednesday morning, we're going to be down around like we were this morning, 19, 20, 21. So if there's going to be fog, which is possible, it's likely to be freezing fog Wednesday morning. In other words, the fog freezes on contact. If that happens, we could have slick spots again Wednesday morning. So we'll have to watch that. Not because of snow, not because of sleet, but just because of fog freezing. It'll be cold enough. Here's Wednesday evening. We're watching another system come in, but by the time this front gets here, it's going to be fairly dry. This is not going to be a system that's going to produce moisture for us, as you can see. It just comes through dry, reinforces some of the chilly air as we get into Thursday. Now, Friday is going to be, and I talked about this last night, another interesting setup in that we could see kind of the same thing that we're seeing tonight over southern Kentucky. And that is a little mixed bag of precipitation depending on the temperature above us and how deep or shallow the cold air is, and surface temperatures. So we could be talking about sleet, freezing rain, snow, rain, until this thing kind of figures out how cold it's going to last or how long it's going to last. We'll go from the low 40s Friday as this system moves in to the upper 20s on Friday night. Now, I know like Smiths Grove has their Christmas parade Friday night. This could affect that. Let me get back there. There we are. Now, Saturday, there's a whole slew of Christmas parades. Bowling Green, Glasgow, Munfordville, Morgantown, Cave City, Horse Cave, I mean, Horse Cave, not Cave City. Horse Cave says there's several, Scottsville, several more. The big one is Glasgow, Saturday night. So this is 6 a.m. Saturday morning. There will be just rain because the temperature will start to climb a little bit more. And as we get on into Saturday, we're going to see temperatures rise into the mid 40s, which if it does that, then no big deal. We've been in parades before when it's been that chilly and there's been rain. So everything will probably just run as it normally does. But it's Saturday night. If we get cold enough as this cold front comes in, that we may have to watch what happens Saturday night. But this is Sunday morning when the cold front comes through. So maybe the best moisture will be east of us by the time we get to the Glasgow parade, which is at 6:30 Saturday evening. And I plan to be there. I plan to be on television doing the play-by-play with Kelly McKay, like we've done the last 2 years of the Glasgow parade. And by the way, it will be live on NBC 40 this Saturday night. You can watch it on TV. And I think by this time, most of this will be gone. And then high pressure builds in for Monday. So I think we're going to be okay this weekend. We'll just have to keep on watching how this develops. Okay, let's go to the other maps here. This is the European map showing how this is going to transition tonight over to that brief period of snow, and maybe the pink there showing maybe some icing, sleet, freezing rain. But look, it doesn't linger. It's out of here by what? 7 a.m., 6, 7 a.m.? Yeah. Tomorrow. Leftover clouds, flurries tomorrow. Then Wednesday into Thursday, not much happening. Little bit of a warm up, not much. Temperatures will still be running below normal, but now here's Friday, and you can see that, yeah, there's still that little bit right there. Something trying to happen. Rain, snow mix, kind of like what's happening tonight, but it moves out very quickly according to this model. And this is why you do model comparisons, because they're not all going to look the same. And then here we go into Sunday and into Monday. And look at Monday. There could be a little something right there. See that? Low pressure system, little wave, little disturbance. That's a long way off. Much could change between now and then. Here's a look at the blender. So we go 35. That's it tomorrow. Close enough to freezing even for a high temperature to keep some of those icy spots. And maybe if you do get an inch of snow, inch and a half, 2 inches, then some of it could stick around for much of the day tomorrow as we just have flurries. Then we get down to 20, maybe even 19 tomorrow night as skies clear. But then we warm to 43 on Wednesday, go back down to 37 Thursday, and then we see a run of 40s, warmer 40s for the rest of the week into the upcoming weekend, and maybe even reaching 50 degrees by next Wednesday. Not this week, but next Wednesday, December 10th. So, but here's the thing, look at these lows, 20s and a few 30s. It's cold. This is far, far colder than it should be for this time of the year. Yeah, so it's Yeah, we're running 10 degrees or more colder than we should. But that's the pattern that we're in right now. I don't think it's going to really last all winter, but this is part of the reason why I've been saying winter could be harsher or a little more active than what we've seen or experienced in previous years, recent years. Could prove to be interesting. And it only reiterates the fact that you need a generator. Boy, today I saw, it was crazy. I saw so many commercials today about portable generators and those that can be installed in your home, like a permanent generator, like the Generac. So R&R Controls, our sponsor, they are experts at installing Generac generators. By the way, if you already have a Generac generator, R&R Controls can come out and do preventative maintenance on the generator. You didn't have to buy it from them, is what I'm trying to say. You didn't have to buy your generator from R&R for them to come out and take a look and go, well, here's what you need. You need a tune-up here. You need this happening here. We need to check your connections, make sure this thing is running like it should. R&R does that, even if you didn't buy the Generac generator from them. And I just have a feeling, and I'm not trying to sell you anything. I really am not, because I'm not that kind of a person. I'm just telling you, and I've got one. And I don't even, I'm leasing, but I don't have this kind of Generac permanent generator, but I've got a generator just in case the power goes off. I think everybody these days should have one, especially with all the electronics and all the appliances that we have. It just makes sense. And now Generac generators are more affordable for you as a homeowner or you as a business owner. R&R Controls can tell you how to finance one of these, big or small. So give them a call, 270-777-2024. That's their number, 270-777-2024. R&R Controls, with them, you'll never be without. All right, let's get to some of your comments, and there's been a bunch of them tonight. So let's go to Lois. Freezing rain in Adair. Well, thank you for watching from Adair County. Used to live in Adair County years ago, before I came to Bowling Green. Lived in Columbia. Actually, Cane Valley is where I lived. So I know of which you're talking. Here is Kimberly. Is Edmonton going to get any snow? Well, I mean, you might. It's really hard to say this place is going to get snow and this place is not. This is not one of those situations where it's crystal clear, because as I explained from the very beginning, there's going to be some of you that your snow totals are going to get cut because of rain, freezing rain, and sleet. It's going to kind of, make it not so very clear as to how much snow you get. So here is Sideways 1955. Chris, what's your thoughts on this winter and what it will be like? As I've stated many times, since we're going into a La Nina, or we're in a La Nina pattern, and the lean is that way, that's just going to mean a more active winter, more of days like this. But we also could have more severe weather days. Yeah, like storms. and tornadoes. It is very possible. Let's see here. What about, let's see. Okay. Most of you are asking about your individual locations. And, it's going to be one of those situations where it's going to be hard to pin down. I can't go through all of them. There's too many. But I like this. I like this comment from Ashley. 6-7-6-7-6-7. Yes, I know all about 6-7. So, it's like the kids think that us older people are stupid. Oh, they'll never get it. 6-7. Oh, yeah, we get it. We got it. Let's see. Sleet in Rochester. Okay, well, thank you. Little bit of a slight rain in Alberton, Jennifer. Thank you very much. How about Rick? Welch's Creek. That's over in Butler County, by the way. Isn't it? Butler or Grayson? Grayson. Welch's Creek has some freezing rain coming down in these neck of the woods. Okay. Thank you for that live report. These are live reports. If you're watching me live, these are the reports that are coming in from all over. And not just in the 270, but beyond, as I like to say. Here's Nancy Cox Payne sleeting off Cave Mill. That's here in Bowling Green. So, yeah. Oh, it's Butler. Welch's Creek. For some reason, Welch's Creek is one of those towns that I'm like, is it Butler or is it Grayson? It's not like an Edmondson confusing, Edmondson County, Edmonton City. A lot of people get those backwards. I don't have trouble with that one, but Welch's Creek, I don't know why. I have trouble with that one. But thank you for the clarification there, Kathy. Okay, enough said. I've gone almost 50 minutes. You guys, the bottom line tonight, we're going to get down to about 30. Whatever's falling out there right now could be a variety of precipitation for several more hours, then a brief period of all snow. Then by tomorrow morning, it's out of here. By the time you wake up, get ready for school, get ready for work, the number one thing, the number one takeaway I want you to take away tonight: slick spots, icy spots in the morning. Okay? Noted. You got it? Good. All right, you guys, thank you for watching. God bless you. Have a great rest of the evening, and I'll see you live in the morning on News 40 Sunrise at 6 a.m. with all the latest.